Hi, it's Winton Churchill with the Barefoot Consultants, and I'd like to welcome you today to our Facebook Friday. We're going to be talking about ways to get off to a fast start once you've got your profile completed and are ready to go online. There's a couple of things that I've noticed over the years that help people get off to a fast start versus a slower start. So if you had to pick one, and I guess the one thing to know is that a slow start can be good too. You know, if you're working a full-time job, it's better to get comfortable and start off slow and get familiar with the system. If you have the time, if you're already familiar with the system, the fast start is more desirable. So we'll talk back and forth about that. We'd like to welcome everybody that's on the board live. I see we've got some members from our private Facebook group. Welcome. And from our public Facebook group as well. So welcome to you. And on our YouTube channel. So lots of good participation today. Would be great to drop in the chat window where you're coming in from. I always like to know that. And also, I'd like to welcome all of our people watching this on the playback. People watch the recording about 95% of the time versus the people that come on live. And you know, we're all about the time shifting of this. In fact, that's what freelancing is all about, really. The number one thing that pops up in the surveys over and over again that people like about freelancing versus working in a regular job is that they like the idea of having control of their own schedule. So having that is a very good thing to do. And let's see here. You press a few buttons here. Okay, very good. All righty. And of course, as always, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. Just pop those into the chat window and we'll take a look at those as well. Let me just pop that over there. Okay. So once you've completed a profile and you know, when you talk about getting off to a fast start, sort of the minimum thing you have to do is create a profile on these systems before you can even bid on a job. So I'm not including that in the fast start. There are ways to get moving quickly to get your profile done. And that's what we talk about on our Tuesday night calls for members of our programs and that kind of thing. But that's not what I'm going to really talk about today. I'm going to talk about this idea of how do you get moving the fastest and what kind of things do you want to avoid. And so in terms of getting moving the fastest, you want to work on small jobs. And you'll see jobs in this system, whether it's Upwork or Freelancer or Guru.com. You'll see jobs that are in the $15 to $25 range. These are usually quick proofreading assignments or take a survey assignment and give some feedback on a survey. It might be make one page of a PowerPoint presentation, that kind of thing. So there's lots of different stuff there that you can do that's very easy to do, very, very simple kind of stuff. And the inclination of a lot of folks is to say, well, I made $100,000 a year at the job I was in. So if I divide that by 2,000 hours, that means that I'm making $50 an hour. So I want to do a job making $50 an hour. And this is absolutely the wrong set of calculations that you make in your mind, because you don't have the same reputation with this group of buyers that you had or currently have in your career. And so you have to establish that credibility. Now, the great news is you can establish that credibility very fast. And that's what this whole small job thing is about. We've had people that go through our programs and they come in and they get their first job and it's $2,000 or $3,000, and they're overwhelmed. They're not yet, because this is their first job or second job. They don't fully understand how the system works. They don't know how to navigate through things. Usually on larger jobs like that, there are certain subtleties, certain things to understand about that larger job that may not be in the description of the project. And trying to navigate the complexities of a $2,000 or $3,000 job brings a lot more, liability to it, because you don't really have the working experience of understanding the system and having a sense of how things flow through the system and that kind of thing. So what we want to do is do that small job. Now, there are some small jobs that I would recommend never doing. There are small jobs like write 5 articles, a minimum of 500 word each, for $5 or $10. And this is the kind of job you never want to do. There are what are called article mills that just grind out articles of poor quality, for the most part, that they're paying very little money for. And those are not the kind of jobs that you want to go after. They're just ridiculous. However, I will say that those jobs are often done by people in the Philippines, people in India, maybe for whom English is not their first language, but that's how they're learning how to do this and navigate this. But these are not jobs typically that you want to do if you're a baby boomer with 25 years or more experience in doing what you're doing. If you've been sending emails for 25 years, if English is your native language, you don't need to work at that extremely low level. You want to target a job in the $15 to $25 range. And there's many different kinds of jobs, of course. There's the writing jobs and the editing jobs and that kind of thing. And those are always very good to start on if they're simple jobs. And I encourage you to look for those. If you're not particularly a person that is word focused, there are many other jobs that you can do on these systems. There's thousands of jobs, and maybe about 30% of them are focused around word stuff. And we use editing and proofreading as an example because it's easy to understand. But there's many other kinds of jobs. And welcome in, Christine. Glad to see you here, and thank you for that always appreciated. So small jobs, end of story. Just do small jobs. Get about a half dozen of those under your belt, half dozen to a dozen. You can do that typically, depending upon how active you were in the system. You can do that in your first month or two in the system. And the benefit of having done that is that the algorithm in the system says, hey, this new person here is active. They're satisfying clients. They're getting between 4 and 5-star ratings on most every job they do. And so the system and the algorithm begins pointing other people towards you, which is one of the real benefits of working in these online networks. They see somebody is looking for a skill set that you have, and they will suggest you as a possible freelancer to do that job. The next piece of that is to pick a job that you could do in your sleep. You're not going for that complex job because learning how to navigate the system is important. The first time that you got an account on Amazon and tried to figure out what was happening with that, you were probably poking around in there and trying to figure out what this does and what that does and that kind of thing. And so by doing a simple job you could do in your sleep, it might be an Excel spreadsheet, it might be a page out of a PowerPoint presentation, it might be a short voiceover, a 30-second voiceover, something like that. lots of good short jobs to do in this system, and kind of hit that doing your sleep standard, because you know you'll be able to knock that job out of the park. You want to do something that you know your client will be absolutely impressed with, favorably uh, appreciative of what you've done for them, that they would be hard pressed to say that you didn't complete the job successfully. I mean, you just have done it. You've done exactly what they've asked for, and away you go. Now, the next and the third thing is this idea of over delivering. And this is a concept that very few folks understand that work online. They think, okay, somebody put up a job, I'm going to do the job, and then I'm going to be done, and I'm going to get paid. And that is, to a large degree, uh, how things work. I mean, that is an accurate description, but this over delivering can really set you apart from other freelancers that are just getting started. And so let's talk a little bit about what over delivering looks like. Over delivering is if you finish a proofreading job and you've made some corrections and that kind of thing, and you give that to the client may not be able to look at that for a day or a week or something like that. They've got a busy work life, they've got a busy home life, and while they wanted you to do it and they set a deadline for it, their deadline may have changed. They may have built some padding into their deadline because, based on previous experience, they found that freelancers don't necessarily always deliver on time, so they wanted to have a little extra time built in there. But one of the things that can happen is you can tell the client, when you deliver the final version of whatever you're doing for them, you can tell them, if you have any minor changes you'd like to make over the next 60 days, I would be happy to make them. Now, in theory, what happens is when you finish the job and they pay you for the job, and they may close the job at that point, or you may close the job at that point, that job is done. You can't, it's like in a container and it's wrapped up with saran wrap, and you can't get back into that job. But as a human being, the buyer could write back and say, what you did for me was great. I'd just like to have you change the last paragraph a little bit by doing this. This is the kind of thing that's going to take you 5 or 10 minutes to do. It's not redoing the job or anything like that. The first thing to know is that most buyers will never take you up on that, but they will appreciate you offering that. And this is a great example of over delivering. And they love that because it takes the pressure off them to have to read it right away, to make sure they got it right. Once they work with you a number of times, which is one of the things that frequently comes out of this, they get a trust level. They know that you do deliver on time and that it does look very clean, and that if there's ever any changes to it that are relatively minor, you're more than happy to make those changes. This is stuff that freelance buyers are not necessarily looking for, but when they see it, they say, wow, that's great. Nobody's ever done that for me before. So that's a very good thing to know there. And so the idea of over delivering can occur in, say, a voiceover job where you're doing a 30-second recording of stuff. Obviously, if they're asking you to do to change some aspect of the recording, and it's one you've done before, it's pretty simple. If you've got your equipment set up, to just sit down and knock it out. So that's what we're looking for as you get started. You want to do the first half dozen jobs and to a dozen jobs. You can, I've seen some people do that in a matter of a month. Other people take 2 months. That's comfortable. And again, these are small jobs. They might take an hour or two. They're not lengthy got to wrap your head around something very complex. You have to interpret. You don't have to read between the lines of the job description. You don't have to have lengthy conversations with the client to make sure that you understand what needs to be done. So these are three ways that you can piece that together and really get off to a fast start. I was talking to this about with a member of ours about 2 weeks ago, and they kind of came at it from the standpoint of, hey, I made this much per hour. I don't want to do a job that's, half that or that kind of thing. And the point is, you're not signing up to do work forever at that rate. These are what are called audition jobs, these small jobs. And basically what the person is doing an interview with you without actually interviewing with you. They're seeing what the example of your what is called work product, what you deliver to them, is it what they want? In the old days, if you were going to be an employee, you'd have a resume, you'd have an appointment, you'd go into their office, you'd sit down. Everybody envisioned that you were going to work there for years, typically, 3, 4, 5 years. That was kind of the general expectation. And they would hire you, and they would get to know your work by seeing you produce work. Well, this is the equivalent of that interview, and they have jumped right to the moment where they look at your work, that what you're able to provide them in terms of a very simple task is speaks volumes. Is it turned in on time? Is it formatted well? Is it easy to read? Were the proofreading mistakes corrected? Was the editing done properly? All those kinds of things are things that they're judging that you've done, and they may have given that exact job to half a dozen people. I saw one company that spends hundreds of thousands of dollars on the Upwork system, probably a major broadcast company or somebody like that, and they were hiring 99 freelancers to do what are called tip sheets. It's tips like 10 ways to save money on vegetables at the grocery store, 10 ways to make sure your car is in peak running condition before you go on a car trip, that kind of thing. And they are hiring 99 freelancers. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that what they're doing is they're bringing those 99 freelancers in, and they're looking at examples of the work that they've done. And then they're going to pick the 2 or 3 that have really done an exceptional job, and they're going to go back and work directly with those people. So that's kind of how those things piece together. So happy to answer any comments you might have or questions. I'm going to pop the window here, questions or comments. So you should see a little something in the chat window pop up there. And happy to answer any of those. Cannot emphasize the importance of getting started. People that do the opposite, that go in and go after the big job, it's like going into the gym after you haven't exercised for a while, and you do the same routine you were doing a year ago when the lockdown occurred that you haven't been able to do in the last year, and you go in and you try to do that same routine right out of the bat. You're going to be pretty sore the next day. God forbid, you might twist something. You might even break something if you're not careful. Better to go back in there and start at a slow, steady pace, maybe at about a third of where you were before, and then build your way up, rather than going in and start doing that heavy lifting right as you get started. So let's see. All right, we've got some more people joining. Happy to answer any questions. Always interested to know where you're checking in from. And for those of you listening to the replay of this, we do answer the questions during the week. So whether you're in YouTube or on our private Facebook group is listening to this, our public Facebook group is listening to this. So if you have any questions, be sure to put those in the chat, and we'll answer that during the week. And with that, I'm not seeing any questions, so we'll be signing off for now, and we'll look forward to seeing our members on Tuesday night when we do our live webinar every Tuesday night to help people, mostly 50 and above, become baby boomers. And we have chat on our webpage. If you have any questions, happy to answer questions there. Just go to barefootconsultants.com and you'll be able to ask away for questions. And thanks for your support. If this has helped move you a little bit further along in your concept of freelancing and what might work, be sure and give us a like on the way out. That helps us share this message with other people around the system that you're in. You know, typically Facebook. It helps other people know about that. We appreciate that. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week with another interesting topic. So take care. Have a great weekend, and we will see you soon.